GM, everybody. My name is Jonas,
And I'm Hayden, and this is Safely to the Moon.
a show where true crime meets crypto scams and produces wild stories you wouldn't believe. Hayden and I are going to be talking about a company that we used to work at. We will be bringing on former coworkers and diving into some of the crazy stories that you probably heard if you saw our intro video. What is the company we worked for? How did we get into it? When did we start to see red flags?
Right. Yeah, so Safemoon. Honestly, I've known John for almost I'd say coming up on 10 years now.
And John's the founder,
John is the
CEO.
CEO and the founder, and I've known him for around 10 years. We actually started off together at Vivint, where Jonas is also a former employer.
That's right.
And we were scheduling coordinators for the people that sold and then installed. And I actually managed John in that capacity, or I should say his real name is Braden. Let's just say that. Braden, and I managed him there. And yeah, we worked there. We both left, and then he entered the military and had his military service and didn't have contact with him for a long time, right? And then I was working for a company called The Grounded Company under Nick Staggy, right? And John hit me up one day and was like, "Hey, dude, I need marketing." And I was like, "Okay." Like, "What are you doing right now?" And I told him my position at this marketing company, and he wanted to come talk to Nick and really understand how we can get some marketing at the company. So he came.
Did you know anything about Safemoon at the time?
I didn't know.
Because you've been in crypto.
Technically, I did know what he was doing. I was in crypto. I was on Coinbase. I was just on the blue chips, the normal Ripples and our XRPs, Bitcoin, Ethereum. I was even in, what was it called? I forgot. But there's a whole bunch back in the day that aren't even existing anymore. So it's crazy. And I knew about it, and I saw that he had started this company. I actually reached out to him for his old company, Tanos. And I was like, "Hey, this company I was working at before, we do video editing, so on and so forth. Hey, just let me know what you're doing, man. Looks like you just started this company. It looks pretty cool. It's into gaming, so on and so forth." And he didn't hit me up for a long time. Finally, I saw he started Safemoon, and I actually bought some. I was like, "Oh, I'll just support my friend." Didn't know how big it was. You know what I mean? I was just like, whatever. So I bought some Safemoon for like $50, and it just popped off. And I was
Blew
like,
up,
holy.
parabolic.
And I was literally like, holy shit, this is awesome. I'm gonna dive in and see a little bit more. And I didn't talk to him after that, really. It was just like that LinkedIn message about Tano. "Do you need video editing?" Didn't message back. Then he hit me up again because he came to Utah. Originally, he's from Virginia. He came here to go to school and so on and so forth. But he came back and wanted to meet up. He was at Silicon Slopes, of all places.
That's where I met him.
Yeah,
at
that's
the
right.
conference.
You told me that.
Yeah.
And the office for Grounded was right down the street. So he came over. We talked. He sat down with Nick. We had a discussion, so on and so forth. And he basically was like, "This is awesome. I want you guys to be my marketing department." More or less trying to say, I'll buy you out. And Nick's like, "What?" It was just confusing, right? He just came in.
Well, and he had so much money at that point that he had no idea what to do with,
No
and
idea.
he had no business experience. So
No.
he's like, but how did he go from that to hiring you?
So Nick had said, basically, he's like, "I'll buy potentially like $5 million. I'll buy this company." Nick's like, "No, we're just starting. There's so much potential in this marketing company." And so he just said no, right? So through that, he just kept hitting me up after he left. "Hey, man, I need a sales guy. I know you're a good sales guy. Blah, blah, blah. I need this. I need that. I want you to be my director of sales," so on and so forth. And this lasted for about 4 to 6 months.
So this was 2021.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Let me think about it. Not really. I'm not interested right now." But he just kept coming at me. And then finally in December, he came. He's like, "Hey, I really want you to be the company." He sat me down at the headquarters and nothing was there. It was nothing but camping chairs. And he said, "This is the vision. This is how much money you could potentially make, right? This is a base salary." And I was like, "This is more than I'm making at where I was." The potential in regards to sales commission was pretty great, right? And I didn't really know Safemoon to the extent of like the community and how large it was until Dave Portnoy was like, "Hey, I'm buying this," right?
Yeah.
and I'm a Barstool guy, so I like Barstool, so I just heard about it. And finally in December, he's like, yes or no. If you say no, I'll just stop. I was like, okay, let's do it. I had a long conversation with Lindsay, my wife, and from there, I signed on December 23rd of 2021.
So it really was just like a week or 2 weeks before I came on then. I thought you had been there for a bit longer, but
No, dude. I met you the first week I met you. He like sat me down. He's like, Scott Paul had introduced me to Jonas. And I was like, never heard of the dude. And I looked you up on LinkedIn in your burgundy outfit.
my suit coat, my
With
chain.
your long chain. I was like, who is this sales guy, dude? Typical sales bro. But then you came in and we had that discussion, and John more or less gave you the outline of the sales department and said, hey, Hayden's going to be the director of sales. You'll work with Hayden. And then when we talked, I was like, oh, this guy's legit. He knows his stuff. That's basically what I needed, was someone that was already in DeFi, right? And had good sales experience, which you did. And then from there, I was just like, okay, this guy's cool. Let's go.
Yeah.
And it was more of a throw you into the fire. I think we both got thrown into the fire, really. And so that was how I got involved in Safemoon.
Yeah, it was a wild ride. For me, I mean, originally, and by originally, I mean, I first heard of crypto 2017 when Bitcoin was blowing up. And I thought it was a scam, which is ironic because I ended up working for a scam.
That's funny.
But I had some buddies that were buying Bitcoin, and I'm like, it's so dumb, like fake internet money, whatever.
Right.
It wasn't until 2020 when, long story, but I saw where inflation was going. I saw how the government was handing out money and handling the US dollar. And I knew that like the value of my bank account was just going down every day.
Right.
Started to diversify. I started to invest more. I really didn't make money until 2019 out of college working for Vivint. So I had this money, and then I'm like, well, Bitcoin sounds kind of interesting. The more I learned about it, the more it made sense. And blockchain technology is actually very, very sound. Like it's here to stay.
That's one thing that I always preach to anybody that asks me. Crypto, it's a little bit of a vessel.
Exactly.
But blockchain, if you look at blockchain, that's where the future is really leaning towards. People aren't going to accept it just yet, but it's really the sound foundation of something good.
Yeah, and it'll take a while to catch on. But the problem is that crypto is the easiest application of blockchain technology. So a blockchain is just, a distributed ledger.
Right.
Anyways, so the more I learned about it, the more I liked it, the more I started investing. So I bought my first Bitcoin in 2020, and then I started buying some other cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
Then I hear about Safemoon in March of 2021.
Right.
And Safemoon was interesting because what made them different as a cryptocurrency is for every transaction, there's a 10% tax. The idea is that half of it would go to the liquidity pool, which was locked. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. That's why John's in jail.
Whoops.
It was locked. The liquidity pool just means that there's, stable price movement. People can trade. It's its own market maker. And the other half of every transaction is distributed to the rest of the holders. Right. So it was really interesting because it's like, just by holding it, you get more Safemoon every single day because every single day people are buying and selling it. Right. So it was cool that you bought some Safemoon. 5 minutes later, you refresh your wallet and you see more in it. Right. So it was cool. And that's part of the reason that in the name, Safemoon, the idea is that they take you safely to the moon. Parabolic. Yeah. And they reached a 5 billion market cap, I think, within a month. Right. All-time high was a little over $8 billion. And, so I put in a little bit and I saw it,
Watch it ride,
so much money. And so I was a fan, I'm like, this is awesome. I made way more money on Safemoon than on Bitcoin. Right. So, I was a huge fan. I was in the community, and my wife and I moved to Utah in end of 2021. Right. And 2 weeks after we bought our house, Safemoon announced, hey, we're moving our headquarters from London to Utah. Yeah. And so I'm like, what the heck? And at the same time, I was leaving my job. So I'm like, this is perfect.
And it was literally like a block away from your house.
Yeah, like 4 minutes. Yep. And so I knew a guy who knew Hayden and John. His name's Scott Paul. We're actually going to have him on.
It's going to be a great
That'll
episode.
Be a good episode.
Oh, my gosh.
He introduced us, and that's kind of the story. That's how we got there.
Yeah.
So you were there for, a week, 2 weeks before me. When did you start to see red flags? Like, when did you know, like, something's not right?
I think one thing that I think people need to understand about me is I try to see the best in the situation. Not even just situation, but in people as well. And you and I saw red flags, geez, I'd say like 8 to 9 months in, even maybe earlier, right?
I mean, the one for me, like the first red flag, day one, was that, and you'll remember this. So I take the job, and I get my onboarding documents sent to me.
Oh, yes, I know you're gonna say. Yeah, from K.
From Safemoon LLC. Safemoon was spelled. Oh no, it was Safemoon Approvals.
Approvals, and there was 2 O's.
So approvals was spelled wrong, and Safemoon was spelled wrong.
And he I think you messaged me or John.
I messaged you. I'm like,
is this right? And I was like,
because in my head I'm like, is this an elaborate social engineering scam?
Right.
Like,
no, I do remember you texting me that, and that it should have put up red flags in my head, but it didn't.
But John had like a clever.
He had a clever, weird sense of humor.
Well, and his way of writing it off, he's like, it's just a joke. He's like, also we spell it wrong, so people can't look us up and find us.
Yeah, he did say that.
I'm like,
I never asked, but then when you brought it up and I asked John, and you were there as well, he said that. But even through that, I think a red flag as well was we walked into like camping chairs. Like we walked in the office and that was our. I don't know if you were there, and we didn't have desks at the time. When you came and visited us, we did. But it was just camping chairs. And then, I don't know. I like I said, I give the benefit of the doubt, try to figure out the best possible solution, because I was like focused on our department. Because later on you'll figure out that every department had their own agenda, and ours was, hey, let's just get some sales. Let's get some people in the community, some people into the ecosystem is what I like to call it. But in my opinion, I think it was like 8 to 9 months in, I was just looking at you and saying, what's going on? And then you eventually left, and it just got worse, right? And I was like, oh gosh, I have to leave. And eventually I did.
Because part of the problem was we were hired to sell blockchain products. And what they told us is hey, we have a decentralized exchange. Like, that's good to go. We have a wallet, but we're also coming out with a centralized exchange, a point of sale system, an NFT marketplace, plenty of these other things. And every month that those didn't come out, Hayden and I were like, what's going on? And to this day, now the company is dissolved and bankrupt. Nothing was ever released. And so
I will say things were built.
They were built.
Released, no. And I think you're right. And that's around the 8-9 month mark is when we were like, where's the point of sale? Where's this? Where's that? Right. And that's when you left. And that's when I was like, if they don't have another product, like I knew they were working on the NFT marketplace, and it was essentially done, and they overpaid for it. They used a third party, as everyone knows, they're third party kings, right? And it didn't get released. And so I was just like, there's other factors to it, and you'll learn later. But yeah, that's the main thing, was products, especially for a sales department. How are you supposed to sell?
Yeah. And
all we're selling is opportunity and potential, and that's where that marketing, as you hear in the intro, the marketing department that didn't do any marketing. It's like if anybody knows anything about sales and marketing, those two departments go hand in hand. And if it's only just one side of that hand doing all the work, you're not going to do anything. And we did as much as we could, and we did great. I'm going to say, and people might disagree with us because it's cool to hate on Safemoon and everybody that was part of it, but I feel like we were the only department in that company that did anything.
We actually did good work, and like we were proud of it.
We were great, yeah.
Like we did a lot of volume, like
a lot
with one product.
And it was, let's be honest, it was a shitty product.
It was
not that good. Like, it could have been a lot better, but we went through so many different CTOs and dev managers that it was kind of hard to stay on top of things.
What was really hard for me was the fact that Safemoon externally and Safemoon internally, night and day. As a company, they were very, very good at giving off the persona
and the perception.
We are a $5 billion company, $8 billion company, and that was, again, another red flag. Day one, you mentioned it. I come in for my interview, and like it's this giant office space in Pleasant Grove,
with
Utah,
90 employees.
With 90 employees. There was 2 people there.
It was me and Jonas, and me, John, and then Jonas was the third person that walked in.
I come in, I have my interview in lawn chairs, and I'm like, oh, they just bought this space, 4 months ago, so maybe they're still putting stuff in.
Right.
And like, it's a nice brand new office building. I'm sure, like, man, they're paying a lot for this rent. No, that building never ever filled like at all.
No.
We at max
At max, it was
capacity,
probably like 8 people, 8 to 10
people, yeah, on a great day.
But that's when people were there. It was you, me, Stacy, Sketch.
John would come in every once in a while.
Josh would come in, leave at 11, come back at 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and mind you guys, they were paying like 20 grand a month.
Yeah.
For that space to have no one in it. No one. And let's be honest. You and me were the only ones in there for 90%, 95% of the time. Just you and me in that massive space.
Yeah. So that was a red flag. And it was just kind of like, as time went on, this stuff kept building. We're like, hey, we still don't have products. Hey, we still don't have the office filled out. Hey, this doesn't happening. Elephant in the room. John's in prison for fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, wire fraud, securities.
Right.
And we never saw that firsthand, obviously, or, we would have gone to the authorities,
Yeah.
But we saw hints. We're like, yeah, that's not really right. Like, John had a $2 million mansion, and we weren't doing great as a company. Like, we were doing all right, but like, we weren't crushing it.
Right.
Safemoon crushed it the first year and then just kind of fell off. And like, John had, 3 different cars. And
3 different cars. He actually had a couple of houses and
was traveling all the time. And I'm like, man, either this guy pays himself an incredible salary,
which he did,
or he's using customer funds,
and or that, yeah. And I never really linked those two together. Like I said, I was more focused on just getting my job done, which was harder than it should have been. But yeah, I never really linked those until, and at the same time, I didn't really think about it because he's a CEO of a company, and
right, you just assume.
I just assumed,
oh,
like,
Safemoon's a $1 billion company. Sure,
right,
the CEO's got money.
Right. That was my assumption, and not to mention, like, I'm pretty sure I know the range of his salary, so I didn't know if he bought it outright or if he was. Mm-hmm. I know he used it through a shell company, but at the same time, it's like when you make that much money as a salary, like a $2 million house, it's not that hard to just pay the mortgage on it as with the salary that you're receiving, right? So that's why I never really questioned it. It was a nice house, but it was the same as the office. It was empty, right? So it was always like, I was always wondering to myself, what are you doing in it? Why? What's the purpose? You could have bought a flat downtown. And no one really would have questioned that. A flat downtown, 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom. I don't think anybody would have questioned that as much as him buying a $2 million house in the middle of Utah County in one of the nicer neighborhoods in Linden and Pleasant Grove.
Mm-hmm. So I'm like, again, as time went on and I got to know John better and I got to understand the operations of the company or lack thereof, of operations of the company, I'd more and more question that, like, where is this money coming from? And then really the smoking gun, there's a YouTuber. He's like an investigative journalist and he focuses on scams, does a lot of crypto scams. CoffeeZilla, a lot of people know him.
Yep, a lot of people know him.
He produced this documentary, basically. He said, I uncovered a multi-billion-dollar fraud on Safemoon. We knew about it before he released the video. And like John sent emails to the whole company, remember, saying like, hey, there's this guy. He's big on YouTube. He's producing a hit piece on us. None of it is true. Like, don't watch it. Don't give him the views. Like, we've already sent him a cease and desist. Like,
and they did.
Yeah, they found his address,
actually did,
sent him a cease and desist to his house. And so like that was the narrative in the company. Like, hey, this is old stuff that he's twisting. Like, don't even give him the attention. And so like, me, naive, I'm new on the job. I love Safemoon. I'm like, okay, yeah, screw this guy, right? So he releases his video, and
you watch it, yeah.
Well, I didn't watch it at the time because I'm like, whatever. Like, I already know this is, not true. He's trying to destroy my job. But then it wasn't too long after that, things at Safemoon kept going the way they're going. I'm like, I wonder what this CoffeeZilla guy said to make John. So I watched the video, and I'm like, dang, like that is some rock solid blockchain evidence. I'm like, I have some questions. So I started asking, and then you remember, like, we had questions, and the answer was always like, oh yeah, like from our lawyers, who I respected. I liked our lawyers for the most part, and they're like, oh, we're not commenting on this.
Right.
And there was never any public like rebuttal to any of these claims from any of it wasn't just CoffeeZilla. Like, so many people would say, hey, what happened to this LP money, or what happened here, or this blockchain transaction? Yeah. I'd look at it, I'm like, that's a valid question. What did happen right there? Right. And I'm like, Hayden, I'm like, can we ask? Like, we work here. And it's just me, Hayden, in an empty office building. So he's like, yeah, let me reach out to. We never got answers. It was always just, hey, ongoing legal discussion.
And at the same time, I didn't even want to talk about it with Jonas. You remember that? Jonas and I would literally have, I wouldn't say fights, but just have in-depth discussions, and we're like, dude, just stop. Like just keep working. More or less is what our main focus was. But at the end of the day, those questions always crept in, and you're like, okay, what's really going on? And you're right. I think the main thing was when we got that letter internally where it's like we can only have a specific amount of people be outside, or represent Safemoon outside of the internal company, right? And that was me, and it was you, and basically sales, because you need to reach out to people, right? But they would only allow me to manage the whole social side of things, where you would have to more or less approve your tweets through me. And that's because they wanted to obviously control the discussion in the narrative, right? Obviously, I didn't like doing it because Jonas is just a free soul. He's a little rebel soul, and he would just do what he wanted to do. But he'd always get a text from me and be like, "Dude, come on,
I got in trouble a lot.
Just chill, man."
Well, especially because I was in these group chats on Twitter of FUDDers. So if you don't know the crypto vernacular, FUD stands for fear, uncertainty, doubt. And let's be real here. Safemoon was a cult. And anyone that spoke anything contrary or asked any questions was just labeled as FUD.
Right.
Which should be a healthy thing. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt, especially when you're dealing with a volatile asset like crypto, should be welcomed. But in the Safemoon community, people were just attacked. Again, I have an open mind. I would listen to some of this stuff and I'm like, that's a valid point. That's a valid question. Yeah. So I'd start messaging some of these people. And some of my chats got, screenshotted and leaked, and people were like, why is a Safemoon employee talking to these people?
I was pissed.
And I'm like, because I'm not going to turn a blind eye to this stuff, because I want to know. And that was more towards the end of my tenure at Safemoon. That was when I was getting close to leaving, because I'm like, there's just too much stuff. I'm like, I can't in good conscience, stay. And, we had other issues with, management at the company, but it just finally got to a head where I quit, I think 11 months in. It was November. Yeah,
it was 11 months. But yeah, that time period, towards the 9 to 11 month period when you were there, that was hard, because that's when everyone started to comment and started talking about Safemoon and wanted answers, really. And you're right about the cult. As much as I really enjoyed being part in conversing with these people and having conversations and really getting to know them and meeting them in person, right? We met a lot of them in Park City, right? The main people that were you have influencers, right? You have the people that are here supporting the community and supporting Safemoon, but then you have those guys that are over the top, right?
Yeah.
And we met a lot of those guys, and it was great to meet them.
Great people. Ton of like-minded people that just love crypto.
Yeah, but at the same time, we have to understand, and people have to understand, that these guys, one person, and I'll say his name. I don't dislike him. I like him a lot. But Randolph, Randolph on Twitter. It's just those people that think they understand and that they're inside the company, right? No, you are not sitting next to me and Jonas at these meetings. You were not sitting next to me and Jonas on these weekly calls where they just rant and rave and talk and do, and there was really no progression, no direction, right? You're not sitting there watching these people absolutely just run a company into the ground, fast.
Yeah.
Right. And he's and I'm not blaming just Randolph, because like I said, I like the guy, but these guys have no idea what's going on behind the scenes.
No clue. And if they wouldn't believe it if they did.
And if they knew, they'd be like, holy crap. And they would leave. They would pull the TNG systems. They'd pull the Daves, right? Or the Davids. And just be a proselyter for FUD, right? And just say, hey, this is wrong. This is what's happening. But they didn't know. And it was just so funny to see, what was that guy's name? Chris Harris? When he was like, I have a source from MIT at Harvard that says that Coinbase is going to list Safemoon. And I was like, I looked at you. I'm pretty sure I looked at you and I said, you know what's funny? I would be the guy
Right,
that would
yeah.
be talking to
Like,
Coinbase right
that's
now.
our job.
That's my job, is to get on these exchanges. I would be the one that would know if we're getting on Coinbase. And Chris is like, I know, dude.
Mhm.
And did they ever get on Coinbase? No.
And that was two very hard things about that. Is one, we'd be working there, and I'd see tweets from people saying, I have so much faith in Safemoon, you know, like they're going to be the next big thing. And I'm like, why? I'm like, I couldn't say I'm an employee, you know, I'm like,
Right.
what gives, you know, like, and that whole
Where
time I'm
is
like,
this
I
faith
wish I
coming
could.
from?
And then the other problem is that part of our job, because we were sales partnerships, was to get Safemoon, the cryptocurrency, listed on other exchanges.
Right.
Everyone wanted us to be listed on Binance. What we knew that we couldn't tell anyone, that the Binance listing agent told us, remember?
Yeah.
So Binance does, I mean, they're a huge company. They're the biggest company in
Massive.
crypto.
They paid $4 billion to get out
Paid
of
a
the
fine,
lawsuit.
like, yeah.
A fine of $4 billion.
You know,
What?
blew their nose on it, like no big deal.
Right. So big.
So they obviously do their due diligence before they list projects, which is
Huge.
a deep process that they were going for a long time.
Right.
The guy came back and told, and they have different color codes, okay? And so you can imagine, he told us, he's like, hey, Safemoon came back red.
And just so you
This
guys
is the
know,
worst
this
color.
isn't just an email. We met this guy in person.
Talked to him at the
Twice.
Bitcoin Miami. Yeah, oh yeah, two different
Twice.
conferences.
We went to 2 different conferences, and we're trying to, like, as salesmen do, bug him and be like, dude, where are we at?
Mm-hmm.
We really want to be on this. And this was for Binance.us.
Yeah.
This is for the U.S. entity. And then it would obviously lead into a potential, like, Binance listing, right? The normal Binance.
And so people are asking in the community,
Asking.
hey, why aren't we being
Because
listed on
they
Binance?
took a picture of us at the booth.
Talking to, yeah.
Yeah.
And what Hayden and I couldn't say is, oh, hey guys, it's because their due diligence came back the worst score possible.
We were in the red.
And we don't blame them. You know,
Right.
like I would have listed us in the red too.
Right.
And I didn't even know half the stuff that was going on there.
Yeah, they were. The one thing was like legal opinion.
Mhm.
Excuse me, a legal opinion, which is a huge deal in the crypto community for exchanges. And our legal team basically said, "We're not doing that.
Yeah.
We're not doing a legal opinion." And I was like, and I kept just pounding on John's door and saying, "We need a legal opinion if you want to get anywhere near to this type of status."
Wouldn't do it.
Wouldn't do it.
So let's talk about the crazy stuff that we did see. Because we didn't see, at least firsthand, we saw evidences of it. We didn't see fraud.
Yeah.
Actually, I put out a tweet, and this was another thing I was going to say. When I left Safemoon, I kind of started tweeting a little bit more here and there.
Yeah.
And I thought,
you could.
because I could, yeah, finally I had no handcuffs on my Twitter account.
Sorry.
I thought people would appreciate me saying, hey guys, you know, this is what happened. I was attacked.
Yeah.
The same community that prided themselves on positivity
Right.
would attack me for my hobbies.
Right.
You know, like I'd say, hey, I had a bad experience working there. I think it's a poorly run company.
Right.
And Randolph would be like, go back to playing Super Smash Brothers. You know,
And
that's a hobby
who's
of
that?
mine.
The boomerang guy that kept saying, like,
failed
athlete
Yeah.
for Ninja
American
Warrior.
Ninja Warrior. I'm like, I get it. I'm not, you know, but like,
That was so
it was
funny.
crazy because I'm like, I'm not just like making stuff. I'm not even trying to be rude. I'm
No,
just
no.
saying, hey, you know, by the way, I thought you guys would be interested. This is what happened. You know, this is my experience. And I didn't even say anything really close to what we're about to share in the podcast. I would just say
not
little
even
things
close.
and people would attack me.
And that's a big reason why I haven't, since I've left, I haven't said much.
Oh, I don't blame you.
I haven't said much.
Yeah.
And not because I don't want to be attacked, it's because what's the point? Obviously, there's a point. It's like, hey, get the information out there for people that are holding. But at the same time, it's like I don't envy these guys that are going out and just absolutely trying to destroy Safemoon. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even want to see their inboxes. I wouldn't want to see the comments that they're getting.
It's bad.
And we have families.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a main thing for me is I don't want to do this and then have something not even just happen. Just a letter would be even just horrible and have my family dragged into it. I have a wife and 2 kids.
Yeah. No, you were smart about it. I was naive because I thought, hey, I think people will appreciate me telling the truth.
No.
They did not appreciate me telling the truth.
No.
And here's the other thing too. I didn't even know. So I put out a tweet earlier this year.
Yeah.
It was very long. I said, hey, you guys, let me know if you want to hear my thoughts on Safemoon. This was after one of the $8 million hacks.
Yeah.
One of them. And
One of them.
I put out this long thread where basically I said, I didn't think Safemoon was a scam. Even when I knew it was a terribly run company with
Very
terrible
bad.
decisions.
Very
I knew there were a
bad.
lot of red flags. I didn't think that it was because I knew John, and John's problem, like we all know this, he's kind of a narcissist. And so I think even John didn't think he was doing something wrong. He just assumed, hey, I own this company. I can take customer funds, you know. But like
Right.
for me seeing it, I'm like, I don't think the guy's trying to scam people. He's not like an evil person.
One
I
thing-
know him pretty well.
Yeah, one thing about John
He's
is
just
that
dumb.
he's dumb to an extent. There's a different type of dumb. I think he's very, very smart. Very.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think he is easily sold and manipulated
Yes.
by the people that are willing to manipulate him.
He's so smart and so dumb at the same time.
Same time. It's like he has book smarts, but he doesn't have the street smarts to be like, let's put these together and do some good, right? And that was the worst part that I always saw. Like in the beginning, I think when you and I came in and we started doing really well, right? We started bringing in people, had sales go through, right? The people that saw that and didn't like it went straight to John. And our COO was one of those. He would always comment about how much money we were making, as if the reason why we were making that money is because we were actually doing work, right? And yeah, I would walk up to John's office to have a discussion, and there would be someone in there for at least an hour or more, 2 hours, just trying to get into his head.
It was like, you know, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
When it's like the King of Rohan. He's got worm tongue, you know, in his ear.
Yep.
That was John to a T. He's this old king, you know, doesn't really do anything because he's delegated himself out of his role as CEO.
Delegated, literally.
So all he has to do is just talk on Discord and travel.
Right.
And he's got these worm tongues in his ears telling him like, hey, you know, do this, do that.
And
you
it's
know,
not
hey,
just one, it was like multiple people.
yeah, hey, take
At
away
once.
responsibility from Hayden. Hey, cut Jonas's pay. Hey, do this, do that.
Take
you know?
Hayden out of the executive meetings because
Mhm.
it made no sense, dude.
Yeah.
It made no sense. Like if those people were not involved, I feel like Safemoon would have done a lot better. Obviously, we
It's
would
so
have
much potential.
so much potential.
why we
We
joined.
would have come to a head, obviously, with this whole situation now, but I feel like the company would have been 1,000 times more profitable and just a better, well-run company
Mm-hmm.
if those bad actors, another phrase in the crypto community, bad actors were just gone. And why
Yeah.
did you put him as a COO?
Right.
At least there was some marketing and sales behind our background to where we could actually verify and like validate what we did. That guy sat in his office and watched YouTube videos to figure out how to become a better COO. No kidding.
Yeah.
I watched him do it. I literally saw on a screen how to become a better COO on YouTube. Come on.
Which, I mean, good on him
For trying.
the self-awareness
Sure.
in that moment, but didn't apply anything.
Gosh.
And
Wow.
here's the thing, too. When the court documents came out, I was shocked because, once again, I've said publicly, I didn't think Safemoon was a scam. Terribly run
Same.
company? Yes. Worst run company of all time? Probably.
Probably.
Some shady things? I'm sure there was.
Sure.
But when I read the court documents, you know,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this is way worse than I ever thought.
Right.
You know, John did a good job of hiding all this.
Yeah, you and I
Terrible.
never met. Did you meet Thomas? I
I
never met him.
No.
Never
met
seen him. And Kyle was long gone
I
before we
spoke
got
to
there.
Thomas on social media,
Okay,
but I never
yeah.
met him.
Yeah, same. The only time I ever like really saw how dumb he was the Miami thing. And then I kind of just kept him out of my mind for the rest of the time I was there and thought he was just some weirdo, which he is.
Which he is.
But yeah, that's another thing. People were like, "How do you not know about this?" It's like, because we came in like after all this had occurred.
Yeah.
Everything.
Like we came in after John had cleaned house,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was me,
Twice.
you, yeah. So it was me, you, John, and Ryan.
Right.
Pretty much what made up the company.
And David, yeah.
And most of what happened, we had no idea. It was like we were our own company essentially, me and
Like-
you, and the sales room
Yeah.
in that office.
That's what I want to like keep like emphasizing. Our department was so like hyper focused
And
on just doing our
isolated.
job and isolated that we didn't really even leave our room. We barely left our office
yeah.
because we were obviously on calls trying to like figure out everything, but people would come to us to talk. We would never like go out of our
Yeah.
office. It was like we were renting out an apartment at the Pleasant Grove office.
Pretty much. So let's talk about. So we didn't witness fraud firsthand, but we saw so many crazy things. If you have seen our intro video on social media, you probably have a ton of questions. What we're gonna do is real quick. We're gonna run through every little teaser that we gave. We're gonna explain it, and know that in future episodes we're gonna do a deep dive on each one of these,
Right.
and we're gonna be bringing on former coworkers for a lot of them.
Right.
Let's start with my boss sued his mom. Why did John sue his mom? That's the first thing when I share this story. People ask me like, "Are you being serious? Like, who would sue their mother?" John would.
John would.
You know the story better than I do.
Once again, we have to understand. I don't feel like John would have sued his mom if it wasn't for Wormtail in his ear.
For sure.
We have to understand the people that were trying to push Josh, like just push his buttons, was John's family. It was David, it was Charles, it was his mom, it was his dad. They didn't like Josh at all. They had initially requested Josh to be in that position or come help, but then quickly found out Josh was just as power hungry as anybody else. And so they tried to push him out heavy. And so through all these like transactions and money that came through, there was a company that came to light, which I don't remember the name. Barajali. It's based more or less out of the Gambia and having like affiliations and ties with the Gambian government.
It was like strategic investments.
Yeah, exactly.
And John's parents owned the thing, right?
Correct. But it was funded by John, right? Through which we believe now are customer funds, right?
Yeah.
So he started this company, and this is where you're getting all your like hydroponic and windmills and all this other stuff. And
for those of you that don't know, like one of Safemoon's biggest claims, why they got so much traction was because John would say, you know, hey, we have this advanced technology that makes wind turbines more effective. It's hydrophobic or hydrolytic particles, you know, that, and then we're going to turn these turbines into NFTs. They're going to burn Safemoon. This whole vision.
It was a pretty decent vision, in my opinion.
If that's true, you know. But
if it actually worked, it would actually be pretty awesome. But basically, there was just arguments, there was discussions, there was meetings, and at the end of the day, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, Josh pushed John to sue his mom for custody of assets. And there was like discussions of she's not doing the books right. She's not doing this.
It really came down to, like, from what I understand, John thought that his mom was misappropriating funds.
Exactly.
Which is hilarious because that's what he's in prison now for.
Right, exactly. But he claimed that and then sued her, and I didn't really follow it. Didn't really care. It didn't really affect me. But at the end of the day, I heard it was like he had a couple wins. There was a couple wins here and there, but at the end of the day, he sued his mom.
Yeah. Wild. So we're going to have Uncle Dave on the podcast. So that's John's uncle, his mom's brother.
That is going to be a podcast.
We have so much to talk to him about. He knows more than just about anyone, but that's one thing. That's the first thing we need to talk to him about is, Dave, can you give us behind the scenes what happened with this lawsuit? And what happened? How did this family get torn apart? 'Cause it really is sad.
They did.
So that's how he sued his mom. He's in jail now. He's had his bail denied every single time. I think he's been transferred to New York. I think he's facing a total of 45 years.
That's the max, I bet you'll be less, but at the same time.
Assuming he'll meet in the middle, but they have him, and they have some pretty, I mean, if you read the court docs, I read the whole thing, like everything. It's interesting. It's fascinating. It's a novel, you know. They have him on a lot of stuff. They have text messages, Discord messages. They have blockchain receipts, you know, that it's pretty damning evidence. So it's not looking good.
No.
The company's now filed bankruptcy. At the time of recording, it was last week, I think.
Yeah.
Which Hayden and I knew. So before I left, this was November of 2022. I had a conversation with our COO at the time who told me, and I'm about to leave, and he's like, yeah, our expenses for this year are $12 million. And I'm like, you know, because we had nothing to show for it. Our projected expenses for 2023 are $50 million.
Yeah.
I do the math in my head based on what I knew of Safemoon's treasury and bank accounts and funds and whatever. And I'm thinking, I'm like, they only have, 8 to 11 months left of operating capital. And so, it wasn't a shock to us at all that they filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy last week.
Not at all.
They weren't making money. We were their only source of revenue.
And our source of revenue, if I'm being, once again, it's my opinion, our source of revenue went straight to John's lawyer bills. It didn't even go back to the company, in my opinion.
Yeah, makes sense. Which is unfortunate. But that's how I feel it was. Yeah, and they were pressuring us pretty hard on that to get those sales. But how can you get sales when no one trusts you? Yeah. So the whole bankruptcy thing, no surprises there.
None.
Our COO really did hire his girlfriend to be head of HR.
Gosh.
That's Worm Tongue, who we've been talking about. And then that's not only that, he hired his girlfriend to be head of HR for a company with like 6 employees. We do not need an HR department.
She was a global HR.
That was her,
director.
yeah, global head of
'cause
HR.
She's from Australia.
Because we had some Discord mods in Chile, right? So we were a global company, okay?
Yeah.
And then not only does he hire his girlfriend, then he lies about it and gaslights everyone that tries to accuse him. Where we're like, hey, Josh, there's this picture that someone found in your social media of you guys kissing. And then he would, remember he threatened to fire you like multiple times?
Yeah. Because we kept talking about it. And it was there was I'll give you a quick story. I'll make it quick because I want to dive into it later. But there was a time where I basically was talking to a specific person in the company about Kate and saying, dude, they're dating. I know they are. Like this, and this kind of line up. And then Wormtongue heard about it, right? And he literally went to John and was just going off about me. And then John basically told him, you can't fire him. And so he took me to Dutch Bros. He sat me down. He said, why are you doing this? And I said, what? Why are you doing this? I don't want to have any quarrel with that guy since he had so much power at the time. Or I just I just said, yeah, I did. I told him that I told people in the company that they were dating. I was like, yeah, I did. And he was so pissed. Come to find out, when he got fired for insider trading, they were dating the whole time. He literally lied to my face and said, why would you tell people we were dating or we're together when we're in fact not?
And remember he was telling you, he's like, you told everyone in the company, and you're like, I only had a conversation with one person. We ended up asking our coworkers, and the funny thing is everyone knew that they were dating, and everyone heard it from someone else besides you.
Besides me.
Like, oh yeah, Ibs told me, I heard this.
It was literally from I literally talked to the person that took over Josh's job.
Yeah.
And he's the one that told me.
Yeah.
And then him and
yeah,
that's a whole other story. But he's a liar and a snake, and he should be in jail.
Yeah, that's a guy who should be in jail. I'll say right now.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us how we were almost the official cryptocurrency University of Utah? Because I'm still salty about this because we worked really hard.
We worked so hard on that.
On this.
So basically, the University of Utah has a program, a partnership program, and we got in contact with one of their representatives at an event. Jonas and I did. It took a long time. We worked about 6 to 7 months just to get this to a point where we could actually announce it and be legitimized. But
because there were so many different facets to this deal.
So many different facets.
We were gonna sponsor an esports arena, then we were gonna be on the digital billboards on campus, and they were gonna say, hey, this is the official cryptocurrency, and we were maybe gonna integrate our point of sale system, which was never built.
Never.
So there was so much that we had to go through, and
it was a lot of work because me and Jonas had to meet with them almost weekly, daily at one point. And obviously with these types of deals and with these types of partnerships, money is always involved. And having these discussions with John, letting him know this could legitimize their company to an extent that no other company could be legitimized in the DeFi/crypto space. Mm-hmm. And these guys were willing to do it, right? Because they are trying to be in the forefront of this blockchain movement for universities. Some have already started, but Utah could have been forefront.
That was part of the pitch. We're like, hey, because this was back when, crypto obviously had a winter in 2022, but we started in early 2022 and when it was still firing. We're like, hey, listen, do you want to be the most forward-thinking university in the nation, right? Because how many other universities accept to, crypto as payment for tuition or have, a point of sale? Or
how many
use
donations
blockchain?
Could you get through Bitcoin and Ethereum right into your company, university? And so I've had these conversations and literally had to drill into John's head, and John was all for it. He wanted it. Mm-hmm. He wanted it so bad. Yeah. And then it came to the expenses part, and Wormtongue was just no. Why? Give me a business case. If you didn't want something, he'd ask you to write a business case. Jonas
he wouldn't like the business case.
He wouldn't like the business case. So me and Jonas would literally sit down and say, why would you do a business case on this? I understand why you would want this, but this is just a means to an end. You're going to want this. You're going to get this business case, and then it's going to be no, I don't want it.
And what he didn't understand, because He had no sales, no
No
marketing
sales,
background.
no marketing.
He didn't understand the difference between top of funnel and everything
Nope.
else, you know? So we're like, hey, this is an awareness play. This is a legitimacy play.
Legitimacy.
And he's like, how does it put money in my pocket? Is basically what he would ask.
Yeah, it doesn't put money in your pocket at the beginning because you have to pay for services. It's like when anybody came to us and wanted to be part of the Safemoon ecosystem, what did they have to do first? They had to pay to get the rights to be on our swap, have us tweet, have us do all these things, right? Which is still a broken model, in my opinion. We could have done really well if we had our marketing department do some stuff on the end. I don't want to give too much information.
That's a whole episode.
That's a whole episode where he just had no business acumen to really legitimize Safemoon, because it could have been such a good partnership. Amazing partner. It might have actually pushed us to actually get our asses in gear and release some products.
Yeah. Who know. So
it's so sad. I just get so mad sometimes. I'm just like,
especially because the deal got kiboshed multiple times, where we would go back and we would restructure it.
Yeah.
And so we actually restructured the deal. You did a lot of work on this.
4 times at least.
Yeah, and every single time just got sliced. So that's another story.
Because they didn't have enough money, I guess. That's not true.
So 2 months in on the job. Not me, the CFO. I was probably 3 months in on the job.
Yeah, you were probably 3 or 4 months.
I have a call with the CFO. She was like asking me some stuff.
Yeah.
She had been there for a while, 2 months. Okay, so like at least 60 days. And I still remember looking across from me while I'm on the phone with her. And she starts asking me, she's like, so can you explain to me where our revenue comes from? And I'm like, is she testing me? So I'm explaining. I'm like, yeah. I'm just like, Hayden and I sell marketing packages. We sell listings to be on our exchange. We kind of do some merch. I'm like, also there's tokenomics on the token. She's like, can you dive a little more into
tokenomics?
She had no idea anything. Like, and then it was a long phone call. The more I talked to her, I'm like, what is going on?
Well, the crazy part is you had that discussion with her in an office and we were sitting there. The next day I was in St. George. Remember, I had left for like a family vacation. She called me on my vacation to ask me the same thing she asked you. And I was like, it was insane because we hired someone that had no blockchain experience.
Well, so remember the guy who hired his girlfriend to be head of HR?
Yep.
He also hired his friend to be the CFO.
They all worked at the same company.
Yeah.
Before they went to Safemoon. Crazy, right?
So I shouldn't have been surprised when she's asking me this, but
she had no blockchain experience.
I'm like, you should be telling me. You're the CFO. You should be telling me our financials. You know, like I shouldn't have to give you a crash course.
You should be looking into our numbers and seeing where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was. I don't want to talk too bad on her because I didn't dislike her because she was just she was out of her league in this scenario, right? Funny enough, she's now doing some type of NFT stuff. And anyways.
Yes.
Yeah.
A Jeep stolen from the Gambia.
Now that's a conversation that's crazy. I didn't dive into it. That's more or less when John was kind of pushing everyone out, and it was just. But that's a discussion that we might have. We're trying hard to get this person on our podcast because
two of the people that were there actually. We're trying to get both of them.
We're trying to get both of them on, but they were a major part in this because they were there, right? And
they both told us firsthand how, like, Border Patrol was bribed.
Border Patrol's bribed.
Like the title was forged.
Not just one.
Multiple
borders because they went from Gambia. They literally crossed. Gambia is on the western side of Africa, and they had to travel across to get to the border to go up into Europe.
Yeah, because the Jeep was eventually shipped to London, where, from what I've been told, John had a friend who forged the title or something.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, they literally went into this government building or talked to these government officials, and then the next day they were on the road.
What's funny, too, is in one of the CoffeeZilla videos, he mentions that. He's like, yeah, there was talk of some stolen property from the Gambia. And I'm like, I know what that is. I'm like,
100%.
It's a Jeep.
It's a Jeep that was
trafficked,
really. But it was like one of those Jeeps where they souped it up. In the Gambia.
It was a sick Gladiator,
It was a sick Gladiator, white with like Safemoon green rims. It was massive.
Uh-huh.
And that was such a red flag again, is all these things. But yeah, that was intense when I heard about it. I didn't really know what to say. What are you supposed to say? Yeah, we literally almost got killed, got arrested by 4 different border patrols in Africa. What?
Wild.
Yeah, he loved that story.
Insider trading. So, man, I'm going to try and not say too much about this because this is a whole other episode, but it goes back to Worm Tongue. So the guy that got fired
seems to be
he's a recurring theme. Great guy for John to delegate operations of the entire company to, by the way.
Right.
If you haven't caught on.
Mm-hmm.
He was so, he would bring it up all the time. Like, hey, we can't do insider trading. We need to all sign this, which he never sent anything.
Literally the week before. The week before we caught him, he said that to us.
And then he ends up admitting to us. I don't even know if he realized he did or didn't.
He didn't realize. He was just bragging.
Yeah, and he doesn't know a whole lot about crypto and blockchain, so he doesn't know we can find.
We gave him access to the LP pool. Woo!
You give us a little bit of information, we can find your wallet.
There's a couple employees, just so you guys know, people that we worked with, we have access to your wallets and what you've done.
It's not that hard. Again, blockchains are transparent. Because he came in one day complaining that one of the tokens that we had listed on our swap, which we're not supposed to buy or sell because that's insider trading, he said he was complaining that his wallet was blacklisted. So I go, okay, give me 3 minutes to look up which wallets were blacklisted recently by this contract address, and we find his wallet.
Sure enough,
he's buying
4
and selling
wallets. Come on.
Dude,
Yeah,
after him
so
harping on
dumb.
us this whole time about, hey, don't do this, don't do that.
Don't insider trade. I actually the sales guy, had to create a insider trading email. Not him, over operations. I literally had to create it and say, I sent it to Jonas and I sent it to all of our sales guys. And I even sent it out to the whole company. Anybody that wasn't a Discord mod, because they wouldn't know until a specific time. But it was like, hey guys, we're about to sign this company. Do not trade this.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a 3-month period you can't trade, and it's like a 6-month period for the sales guys, because sales guys usually work with these guys for a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
So don't trade it. And then the normal company employees would be 3 months. Well, worm tongue loved to not listen to his own advice.
Yeah. Marketing department that didn't do any marketing. That's very self-explanatory. That's what happened. And even to the point where the company I work for now, it's funny, we both work for marketing companies now.
That's my major, is marketing and sales. So it's just like, it's so funny to see how bad they were.
While I was at Safemoon, I knew about this marketing company. It's marketing software. And I said, hey, because I knew the CEO, I'm like, hey, Scott, can you come and talk to us? I think Safemoon would benefit from this software.
Yeah.
And I ended up pitching John on it after
Business
a whole lot of back and forth with, Worm Tongue and everyone else. Finally, it got approved. Safemoon spends $20,000 on this software for a year license.
Yeah.
Never uses it.
Never used it.
And I was begging them. I'm like, can we please?
Even after you left, you were still begging to use it.
Oh, yeah, because I left
even
to work
after.
for that company. So I'm like, hey, guys, now I'm even here at this company. I can help you out even more. Like, let's use this.
And they never did.
Never did.
Carson tried to push it so hard. I literally was there. I was like, Carson, try to push this. Nothing. It was sad to see that. Just coming from a marketing background, you and myself, like I mentioned earlier, they go hand in hand, sales and marketing. And when one asset is doing something, imagine if we would have actually done marketing.
That would have been nice. Been real nice. Being told to knock doors to sell a cybersecurity product that didn't exist.
Let me give some backstory on that, because
this is one of my favorite stories.
I had taken my family to Disneyland, because it was just a long year, and I was like, hey, I haven't spent any time with the family, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to Disneyland. I get a call from Jonas and Karsten basically saying, hey, I'm talking to Gabe and John, and they're basically forcing us to sell Orbital Shield. And there was something behind it that pissed me off even more, but I don't remember what it was. But anyways, and I was like, why? We it's not even running. It's not even running. We don't have any examples. We don't have a beta, or we don't have a product for them to test. Like, you shouldn't even be doing anything close to like selling this. You can create a potential scenario.
Mm-hmm. Maybe validate it.
Validate it to an extent, but sell it?
Like, he wanted contracts signed.
Like,
and this thing was a concept.
To who? We have like Puro on the 6.4 that sells aromas. Like, tell me how this Orbital Shield is going to protect Pura. Anyways, continue. Because I wasn't there to like literally see what they were saying and how they were like framing it.
This will be one of my favorite episodes, and we have to get Karsten on for it, because Karsten was new on the job and he was, scared. I don't blame him. But no, like, literally, he made, like, basically he was saying like, you will be fired if you don't do this. So we literally went to, and he was like watching us. We had to go to our neighbors on that floor, and I didn't pitch it because I'm not an idiot. Right? Just talk to him. But yeah, and we were in his office, and his office looked out over the Crumble headquarters.
Oh yeah, across the highway. Yep.
And he points at Crumble headquarters. He's like, Jonas, drive over to Crumble right now, find their IT department, and sell them Orbital Shield. He's like, you used to knock doors. I'm like, yeah, I used to knock doors for a product that existed and worked.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not selling your vaporware,
Yeah. And like,
yep. Oh, so that.
Well, that was when Crumble was in their lawsuit with the other company as well. So he's like, he thought he was so smart. He's like, they got their IP stolen.
Yeah. So
go get them.
That was one of the last straws for me, honestly. That whole conversation.
That was so dumb.
So wrapping up, there's a few more. A POS POS. You want to talk about that?
At the beginning of our tenure at Safemoon, Jonas and I had been given the vision of us creating a point of sale system that would accept cryptocurrency and more to the Safemoon side of things. But so we had this is literally like the first month we were there. We went to an event, Restart Utah, and we're literally pitching it. Just like they wanted us to pitch Orbital Shield, right? We were literally pitching the point of sale system to a lot of these companies, and a good amount of them, probably like 5 or 6 companies, were like, this is legit. This is obviously like the midpoint of the height of cryptocurrency, and they were like, we could get donations through Bitcoin, Ethereum, and it can go through this point of sale system.
And it's a solid pitch.
It's a solid pitch.
It's a $2 trillion market. Would you like to tap into it?
Right.
Yes or no?
100%. And a lot of them said, let's talk more. Mm-hmm. And that's where really got our conversation started with the University of Utah. Mm-hmm. Right. And so we had a person that we'll have on our podcast later that said, hey, it's almost done. Come to find out 2 years later, almost 3 years now, the point of sale is still not a thing.
Yeah.
They were looking to use it in the centralized exchange as a point of sale through the centralized exchange that was built. But no, it's not even there anymore. Point of sale is non-existent.
And we spent a lot of time too.
We
kept being told, hey, it's just around the corner,
Yeah, I think it's also, they spent a lot of money on it. And so that's where a lot of the funds might have gone to their liquidation.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. A mansion bought with customer funds. We have both been there to that house. We
Multiple
ate dinner
times.
there.
Yep.
And it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a $2 million mansion in Linden, Utah, that was bought with customer funds. And the blockchain evidence for that's like the most black and white, especially once you see the text messages that Dave has shared.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate.
That's sad.
The worst public speech of all time.
Worm tongue. We were at the Utah CEO Awards, and John couldn't make it, which also just blew my mind.
Oh, yeah, he won CEO of the Year.
He won
Utah
CEO
business.
of the Year for Utah business. Blew my mind that he wasn't there. Like, how can you not be there? That's an award that you need to be there for and have a speech prepared. So John didn't come. Wormtail decided he was going to take this speech. It's funny because Scott Paul and Brandon Fugel will tell you that they're like, you should have done it, Hayden, because I was there, right? It was quite literally the most hilarious thing that Jonas and I have ever seen in our life.
It was like a bad car wreck, but it was also like cringing so hard my nose was bleeding.
Well,
but couldn't look away. I was also embarrassed because I'm at the Safemoon table, but also I hated this guy, so I'm like, yes, keep going.
Dude, he was shaking like a leaf and he couldn't.
Like, let's put it this way. It was, how long do you think he was talking?
He tried to talk, he probably had a 5 to 10 minute speech.
I was going to say, it was like 7 minutes, right? We got the whole thing on film, and our video guy made a video of this event for our Instagram, and he put the best pieces of his speech in this little video. And by the best, I mean 10 seconds, and you look at that, and you're like, that must have been a terrible speech. And that was the best part of it.
It was
best.
So
it was still
bad.
bad. Like, you can probably still find on social media right now, if you look up Safemoon Utah 2022 CEO of the Year Award, you look at the little 10-second snippet, you're like, that must have been a terrible, and that was the best part of it. Like, it was, I'm still trying to get my hands on the footage.
If we get it, that'd be so funny because it was hilarious. Like, I don't like shitting on people, but that man deserves to be shit on.
It was ridiculous. We need to do a live reaction. If we find the footage, we'll watch it.
Please. Oh, gosh.
An $8 million hack. There were actually 2 of these.
Yeah. So You explain the one, and I'll explain the one I was talking about.
Basically, we didn't have the best systems in place as far as developers go. There was an error published to Safemoon's code by
For the
one
bridge,
of our
for the bridge function.
for the bridge function by one of our outsourced, Fiverr developers. Who knows?
Yeah.
And it basically let all of the LP be drained by someone, and then
And
I
then we had
think
to
it
pay
was
for
like
it.
a Mev bot that picked it up, like a
Yep,
front running
a Mev.
bot. And the deal that they came to was they got half it back, and the person who ran the bot got to keep half as his bounty, and just another classic incompetence. Oh, there goes $4 million. No big deal.
And then the other one was pretty similar to that. It was for Whitebit. Do you remember Whitebit?
Yeah.
I think it was like transferring those funds. And I don't even know if it was hacked.
It was just social engineering that the team fell for.
We might because one of the people that was involved in that, not involved as like it was his fault, but he was involved in like the transfer of the funds.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. He's coming on.
So we need to talk to him about that, because they put the blame on him and another person, and it was close to $8 million as well. So you're looking at $16 million lost. And that could be operating funds right now for Safemoon. If instead of terminating them, they could pay him out. But
yeah.
That's in the beginning as well, when I was like still trying to learn the ropes of all this stuff. And they told me that happened, and it was weird. It was like not a big deal, but it was a big deal. Does that make sense? Like, I can't believe you did this, but you're still here. You're not going anywhere. I'm like, if anyone would have lost $8 million at any other company, they would be immediately fired and said misappropriation of funds, and you can go find another job somewhere else.
Or you think at least they learned so it wouldn't happen again?
Again, yeah.
Nope.
And that's just one. Like, that's just two. I bet you there's so many more that we just don't know about.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So this last one, I don't want to give away too much.
This is a big one, because we're gonna have. I want to bring on some people for this.
Oh yeah.
Because remember, there were people there that night.
Oh yeah. So basically, to sum it up without giving away too much, Safemoon headquarters was broken into by a former employee who was then paid off by John.
Yeah.
And who knows the details
People
of that
will say that he
arrangement,
wasn't paid off, but he definitely was.
He was paid off.
He was
about $500,000.
Blockchain doesn't lie. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I was involved heavily on that side, because like I said, I live 4 minutes down the road. Jonas and I live super close to the office. So right when it happened, I drove to that office and called the police, and nothing. You couldn't really do anything.
Mm-hmm.
He was going in there to hide his flaws, which he couldn't hide very well because I already had seen them. But yeah,
but he had enough over John's head where John just paid him off.
And that's where I'm like, with this bankruptcy and everything else, like, how many people got paid off that there was no money to then pay out? And that's just a theory or an opinion, but
yeah. Anyways,
so many things.
We've got a lot to look forward to. So every single one of those topics, and I have a list about 3 times as long. Those were just my favorite. That's what
I'm sure more will come up with some of our people.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure there's so much that we don't even know.
Yeah, so much more.
But we're gonna try to do weekly episodes. We're just on YouTube to start. We'll probably end up putting these on Spotify, Apple. But find us on YouTube. Let us know if you have any questions, anything you want to know. Hit us up. I mean, NDAs are out the window. They're all void. And that's one recurring theme. As I've been reaching out to former employees, they're all saying, "Oh, I have so much that I've been holding in that I want to share."
Right.
So.
And I think when it comes to topics, I feel like people just want to get some stuff off their chest.
Yeah,
there doesn't even need to be
talk.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Is I think the clearing of names, especially in the Safemoon ecosystem, because so many people worked for Safemoon, and they didn't even have as much of a visibility as we did, right? But they know so many things underneath that they can talk for days. And I think we need to get those people on there. They need to have their voices heard, and people will have opinions on this podcast. People have opinions about you and me and about what we know. And in all honesty, it's okay to have that opinion. I'll listen to it every day. But at the end of the day, it's like I said earlier, we were there. These people that worked for Safemoon were there, and they know more about what happened inside there than anybody does on the outside. That was a influencer. That was a fodder. Futters will obviously have a little bit more information, but we know what we saw and what we were able to experience. So I think this is going to be a great opportunity for people to make their voices heard and avoid this from happening again.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's what I was going to say.
You and I have seen so many different projects. I'd say over 100, 150, 200 projects where we're just like, this is crazy. We thought we were in a situation. These guys are in worse situations than we ever were. So, yeah, this isn't just a Safemoon podcast. Yeah, it's called Safely to the Moon, but projects, we will be discussing multiple projects that we feel are not really going towards the Safely to the Moon route.
Yeah, there's a lot. So
Gosh.
That's all we got for today.
Yeah.
Leave your comments. Let us know what questions you have.
Yeah.
Stay safe out there, everybody. And thanks for tuning in.
Thanks.